If you're a frequent PNW Haunts and Homicides listener, you probably already know we're Birdie ambassadors.
We wanted to take a quick moment to tell you a little bit more about this awesome product.
Birdie is the modern personal safety alarm made for women by women.
In a situation where you feel threatened or unsafe, you can simply activate Birdie's loud siren and flashing light to create a diversion.
Birdie is perfect to carry anytime because the device is lightweight and comes in a variety of colors.
So important. Use our ambassador link and coupon code PNW Haunts and Homicides to receive 10% off your purchase. Like our social media handles, the coupon code is all spelled out, no special characters.
You can find the link and promo code in our show notes or PNW Haunts and Homicides link tree.
Have a safe ass day. As indie podcasters, we love to show our support of other awesome shows. So stay tuned for the promo we've got to share with you this week.
Let's show them some love. You can find their info in our show notes.
Did you grow up with a lack of parental supervision?
Do you know all the lyrics to The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air?
Remember Mayor McCheese and the Fry Guys?
Have an inexplicable love for the California Raisins?
Can you remember Madonna's original phase?
Then you might be a part of the Doom generation.
Laugh until you cry with us each week as we stumble blindly through the memories of the movies
And other random things
that doomed us to be the salty, sarcastic, sardonic ladies you want to hang with.
You know us, you love us, you can't fucking live without us.
Doom Generation, available everywhere you find podcasts.
You guys, we're back. And don't worry, we did get more wine.
Well, of course. Hi, Cassie.
Hi, Caitlin.
Hi, creepy people.
Hello out there.
Hello. This is PNW Haunts and Homicides. That's weird.
What?
We must be off today. We said that real quick.
Yeah, we did. Good job.
It's almost suspicious.
It is.
All right. Well, let's not dwell on it.
It's almost like we didn't do this 10 times before and messed everything up, and then now we have to restart. No, that didn't happen. Just kidding.
Actually, not this time.
No, not
this time.
It's happened.
It almost always does. Tee-hee-hee. All right. Well, brace yourself.
Are we going to have another true crime episode?
It is.
The fuck?
Funny you should mention that.
Maybe we should just make Caitlin do a spooky episode.
I've been thinking about it. I have some that would be just spooky enough to make the cut, but that I could probably research. I don't know. I don't know. But today, we're going to talk about a case that honestly seems too horrific to be true.
Great.
Yeah. It's the story of 15-year-old Jeanette Marie Maples.
Oh, Maples. That's so cute.
Isn't that the cutest
That's
name?
really cute.
She was a quiet, shy teen with adorable dimples.
Caitlin,
I know.
you have dimples.
I do.
And they're adorable.
I'm not a fan.
What?
Listen, if you grew up with dimples, you can sympathize with me on this. People like to pinch them and poke them.
Yeah. I think I have dimples.
Yeah, you do.
You
You have one that's more pronounced,
Yeah.
I feel like. Yeah. She enjoyed writing poetry and dreamed of being a chef, maybe one day traveling to France. She also loved her dog, Nikita,
Oh.
and her favorite flowers were lilies. Girl, same.
So
Yeah.
sweet.
This could be me at that age.
Oh.
Throughout her short life, she had been beaten, chained, maimed, starved, and honestly tortured in nearly every imaginable and unimaginable manner, and in the end was placed without a modicum of care into a bathtub filled with cold water.
Why?
Now, as you well know by now, I like to share as much of the relevant backstory as possible in each case, but in order to do so, I'm going to take us back a bit further than the beginning of Jeanette's story, actually to the beginning of her mother's story, and the true crime story of her family tree that may require a bit of further examination. But I'm not going to get too deep into that. We're going to save that for an upcoming Patreon bonus.
Okay.
Because I'm going to see what I can do about actually digging into that case as well.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. You see, Jeanette's mother, Angela, grew up in California and had far from an idyllic childhood. Her own mother had been murdered when she was just 5 years old.
Oh, that's
I
really
know.
sad.
It's really sad. For all the years following her 1973 murder, Angela's mother's murder remained unsolved, just as her father remained a strong person of interest.
Ooh, not good.
Yeah, but I've heard a number of theories about this case, and I haven't really had a chance to delve into it or learn too much about it yet. We're going to get there.
Okay.
Yeah. As you might imagine, that was almost reason alone why Angela and her two brothers wouldn't have a happy childhood. However, the children were also beaten, and the one man they should have been able to trust, their father, used food as a weapon of control.
I don't like that.
No.
It's really sad. They're just kids. They need
They're
food
kids.
to
Yeah.
grow.
The only thing they were ever welcomed to take of their own accord from the kitchen was water. They lived in a constant state of fear, and her brothers have said they suspect that their father sexually abused Angela.
Oh.
Now, to my knowledge, that's never been confirmed, but we're going to take a little bit deeper look into that for a Patreon bonus, amongst other things.
I can't wait.
Yeah, I know you're super excited. Ugh. Surprising no one, Angela took off from the family home right away after high school. She was probably a literal cloud of dust right after they handed her that diploma. That's my guess. And by age 30, she had 5 children. That's as deep as we're going on Angela's background prior to her role in this case as a mother to Jeanette and her other children for now.
Okay. 5 children, too. Ugh.
It's a lot by age 30.
Yeesh.
Oof. It's just a lot of responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Even for someone that loves kids, that's just a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
There was Anthony Jr., Brandon, and Jeanette, whose father was Anthony Maples. Now, this parental coupling never tied the knot. They were, however, in the eyes of the law, apparently partners in crime.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like literally?
Yes, quite literally.
Ooh.
They were arrested for drug-related criminal activity, which of course led to the 3 children being placed in foster care, which, that happens, unfortunately, when you have to spend some time in jail.
Yeah.
When Angela was released following her sentence, she did regain custody of Jeanette. Now, Jeanette had been in foster care for 6 of her 7 years on this rock.
Oh, that's a long time.
Yes, literally almost her adult life.
Wow. I was like, wait a
Yeah,
minute.
what? Literally almost her entire life up to that point.
Wow.
Patience, the 4th child of the 5, was born shortly after Angela's release from prison. Her father is unknown.
She got pregnant in prison?
Well, it's hard to say. I don't know. I didn't pull at that thread.
Interesting. Okay.
Then Angela met Richard McAnulty. The couple was married in 2002, not long after welcoming a child of their own into the family. Richard Jr. was Angela's 5th child. Around 2005-2006 is when the family moved to Oregon. Well, some of the family. Jeanette's 2 older brothers elected to stay in foster care in California rather than join the blended family in Oregon.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, one might be tempted to ask why would the 2 other children write to a judge to request that they not be placed in the custody of their mother once again.
Wow. I was going to say, can you do that?
Mm-hmm. Well, Jeanette was about to find out the hard way. Unfortunately, even if she had made the same petition, she was too young for the courts to allow this typically. Which begs the question, if a child didn't want to live with their ex-con parent, why would we force them to? I know the foster system is overloaded, and in this case, Jeanette probably didn't realize how, spoiler alert, if that's a spoiler for you still, awful her mother was. But still, I know ideally they want to put children back into their parents' custody whenever possible, but whenever possible feels like a very important distinction there.
Yeah.
You know, there are plenty of good reasons not to.
And if 2 other kids already wrote in and then
Right.
you wouldn't have questions about sending another child with her?
That is literally, you read my mind. My next sentence. Also, if the 2 older children of the 3 aren't being placed with the mother by their choice, maybe we should take a second look at this whole situation, at why, and whether or not the 3rd child is really best served by us doing so, by putting this, youngest female child back into the custody of her mother.
It's really sad.
It's awful. Once settled in Oregon, Angela found work as a cashier at a discount store. I'm not sure what kind of store beyond that exactly. It's hardly critical to our story, so moving right along, Richard would also find work as a truck driver at the time. When the family moved to Oregon, Jeanette attended Cascade Middle School in Bend. She was the new kid wearing old clothes, and that was reportedly why she was frequently bullied,
Oh,
at least at first. Despite that fact, she apparently loved school.
that is so sweet.
I know.
Oh, kids are so fucking mean.
They're the
Just
worst.
leave people alone.
Seriously. She enjoyed writing and would eventually make new friends at the school. But when the bell rang at the end of the school day, her demeanor would shift. She clearly didn't want to go home.
Oh,
A friend of Jeanette's noticed bruises on her body in the locker room around this time. But Jeanette did as many abuse victims do, and she made up a story to cover up the true source of her injuries. Basically, something about having fallen. Her friend didn't buy it, though. And honestly, I have to say, what a good friend to be so in tune at that age.
yeah.
Usually your biggest concern is whether your boobs are coming in or
Yeah.
when you'll no longer have acne. At any rate, she tried to convince Jeanette to report the abuse once she learned the truth. The frustrated friend told her parents when she couldn't persuade Jeanette, and they contacted the Oregon Department of Human Services. But their complaints to DHS didn't result in any action being taken.
But why, though?
You're going to want to have that one queued up. 'Cause
Just
you're gonna
keep saying it.
Mhm.
Mhm. Okay.
But still, they didn't just immediately give up. They contacted the school. The school was reported to have also confirmed the abuse with a very reluctant Jeanette.
Mm.
That did finally compel DHS to investigate. But following the home interview visit, no further action was taken. They appeared to have taken Angela at her word that Jeanette was a compulsive liar.
Okay, because 2 other people and the school didn't think so.
But why?
the
right?
Accused abuser says that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
As you can imagine, shortly after the events that we're here to talk about transpired, filling in the blank for something not awesome, DHS refused to comment as to how the critical incident response team handled the case. Suffice to say, not great. However, concerns about the abuse only seemed to escalate for those that were trying to help Jeanette, at least. Only those people, not for DHS. But after graduating from the 8th grade, she was pulled from the public school system and registered as a homeschool student.
Oh, no, that's really bad.
Her mother claimed to take over her educational requirements, but of course, there was nothing further from the truth. This removed any layer of protection that being in school had afforded her. Temporary mental and physical breaks from the abuse, as well as access to at least one steady meal source.
I hate that so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I read that, it was just like, there is no way that this ends positively because there's so many red flags so early on.
Yeah.
Then in August 2009, the family was preparing to pack up to move from Bend to Eugene. In this time period, Richard's mother, Jeanette's stepfather, came to help them prepare for the move. She wasn't allowed to visit often, typically, which is red flag number 169,000, probably. Though Jeanette couldn't speak to her at all during the visit, Lynn did see her that day. She was concerned about visible injuries Jeanette had, such as a cut lip. When the day of packing was coming to an end, Lynn was permitted to hug Jeanette and made quick use of the opportunity to ask her what had happened.
Oh.
This is like the stepfather's mother. So this is her step-grandmother.
Wow.
And she's arguably one of the people that, you know, tried to do the most for her. I can't even imagine what it feels like.
Yeah. I mean, it should be your own family taking care of you. That's not even your blood. Like, none of these people who tried to help her, I feel like.
No.
So far, anyway.
Oh, I can't. Jeanette again brushed it off, and she fibbed about how she'd been injured, but Lynn went ahead with filing an anonymous report regarding potential abuse with DHS anyway, which, you guessed it, had no measurable impact on anything for Jeanette.
And this is like, what, the 3rd one now?
It's had to have been at least the 3rd. Yeah.
Wow.
Based on my research, it doesn't sound like they followed up at all at this point, which is pretty heartbreaking. Honestly, especially because they were planning to move. So there's nobody's keeping track of these people. Like, what if they had just totally fallen off the map?
Oh, no.
Lynn could feel how thin Jeanette had become. Though notably, until she hugged her, it had been well concealed under her loose clothing. So there was definitely an effort, or at minimum, an attempt to conceal abuse or any neglect that was occurring in the household. And that's, I feel like, when you know there's something really wrong, when they're trying to prevent the kids from even being able to speak to, you know, this literal only other, you know, source of family or, you know, maternal type support. They're not even allowed to speak to her or interact with her. You're silencing them for a reason.
Yeah, definitely.
September 2009, the family moved into the home on the 150 block of Howard Avenue in Eugene, Oregon. Patience was enrolled in school. She and Richard Jr. would begin seemingly to flourish in the new environment, but obviously not Jeanette.
She couldn't go to school. Why?
Even though she had only completed education through the 8th grade, she was oddly not enrolled in school. She didn't meet other kids in the neighborhood or make new friends at a part-time job or in extracurricular activities. Though it's clear the abuse that Angela perpetrated against Jeanette began before this most recent move, it definitely seemed to escalate. Angela hit her with shoes, deprived her of food and water, even smearing pet waste on her face.
What the fuck? Why?
We're going to come back to this because sadly, with this detail in particular, the psychological abuse against the other children in the home comes into play. I'm not a psychologist, but if you ask me, I think it's relevant.
Jesus.
But it was in this filthy, crowded home where Angela made Jeanette sleep on the floor with only cardboard between her and the floor.
Oh my God. This is way too sad.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave and just, you can finish up.
Okay.
Okay, bye. Bye.
All right. In reality, she'd only been given this sheet of cardboard to protect the flooring from getting blood on said surface.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Then one conversation signals a serious turning of the tide from bad to so much fucking worse. On December 4th, just a couple of months after moving into the Howard Ave home in Eugene, Richard called his mom, stating he was upset because he'd seen Jeanette drinking from the toilet.
Oh, no.
This was just 5 days prior to her death.
So, like, did he had to have known she was being abused.
Yeah, it's going to become a pretty major point of contention about how much he knew, how much he did, what he could have done or prevented.
Like, I feel like if you're living with a child and you never see them, there's something wrong.
Well, and if you are seeing them,
you're seeing it.
You're seeing that abuse being perpetrated almost certainly.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's a tough one because if he's working as a long haul trucker, there's probably a lot of things that could be occurring when he's not around. During this period, that's not the case. At around 8 p.m. on December 9th, Lynn, this is the step-grandmother,
okay,
gets a frantic call from Angela. She told her mother-in-law that she couldn't wake Jeanette and she wasn't breathing, but revealed that she also hadn't called 911 for the unresponsive Jeanette, stating that she didn't want to go to jail.
Oh, why are you worried about that?
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear why. Now, what is unclear to me is how she was able to do this in such a stressful situation. Lynn, thinking quickly, had Angela put her son Richard on the phone. And she told him that if he didn't immediately call 911, she would be headed to their home herself with law enforcement in tow.
Ooh, damn right.
Apparently, that was enough to put the fear of God in him, or at least of his mother showing up with the cops.
Yeah, the fear of your mom, though, that's like the worst.
Yeah. Yeah. And then she's got the cops behind her, too. Like, it's all.
Yikes.
Whew. He called 911 to report that his stepdaughter wasn't breathing, but didn't really disclose any other pertinent details about the situation. Lynn placed a call back to the home a short while later to make sure they had in fact called for emergency services, whereupon Angela told her that she had whipped Jeanette and just got carried away.
Oh my God. How do you do that?
I don't know. I don't think she means literal whipping.
Yeah, like
But,
beating is what
yeah.
I'm thinking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a whooping.
Whooping. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily spelled out that she said it in that tone, but I think that's kind of the context that we're looking at.
Wow.
At 8:04, medics arrived to find the still unconscious and badly injured Jeanette in the living room. Her hair was wet and she was half clothed.
Why? Why'd she not have clothes? Oh.
The medics and detectives that reported to the scene were all admittedly deeply affected by what they saw that night. A longtime officer would later state that he immediately suspected abuse, so he stepped outside to phone his supervisor and make that person aware. That night, for the first time in his nearly 20-year career at that point, he ended his shift and found himself crying as he reflected on the night's events and what had happened in the house on Howard Ave. And he said that was the first time in those nearly 20 years that he had ever finished the night out and just let loose, just cried,
Wow.
because he'd never seen anything so horrific.
Yeah, I don't know how you could look at that and be a human and like not break down.
Yeah, there's no way. Sadly, Jeanette was pronounced dead shortly after arriving at the hospital. Lynn begged officers at the hospital to let her see her granddaughter one last time.
Oh.
The empathetic man that she spoke to compassionately explained regarding the condition of Jeanette's body, battered and emaciated as it was. She weighed just 50 pounds.
Oh my God. And she was 15?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Both Angela and Richard were arrested at the hospital. Richard tried to take the blame. Unbeknownst to him, Angela had already made a damning statement to Lynn, and that made it pretty clear who was responsible for at least these latest injuries that led to her death. Not to mention, Richard was recovering from an open heart surgery following a cardiac episode at the time, making it pretty unlikely that he could have inflicted any type of injury on Jeanette at the time. That's not to say that he was innocent in all of this, obviously, because this is years of abuse that has led to this point. He had observed her drinking from the toilet just days prior to her death, after all.
I don't know how you wouldn't just like take the baby away, like
Yeah.
do something, get her out of the fucking toilet.
No well cared for child is doing that, especially at Jeanette's age.
And if
She's
she
15.
weighs 50 pounds, it's clearly she's just a skeleton walking around. You don't see that.
Yeah. How anyone in this case is, it's unfathomable. I know that it happened, but it's truly unbelievable. The two remaining children in the home, 12-year-old Patience and 5-year-old Richard Jr., would be taken into protective custody and placed in foster care. And what's kind of sad and horrifying about this is that you have the youngest child at 5 years of age being scarred by this incredibly traumatic experience all over again.
Yeah. Oh.
In light of the many serious injuries Jeanette had at the time of her death, this should hardly be surprising. Her bruised face, cuts above her eye, and her emaciated body with bones all too visible to the paramedics that had attempted to revive her, as her own mother stood by, oddly even laughing occasionally through their efforts.
Laughing?
Mm-hmm. They were all striking reminders of just what Angela had been capable of.
Ugh.
The emergency room physicians at Sacred Heart Riverbend in Springfield were told Jeanette had no prior medical issues. This is in stark contrast to the many obvious wounds all over her body, most of which were determined to be completely untreated, having failed to heal prior to the time of her death. You know, like an exposed femur.
What?
Because that's not something that you can just walk off, unfortunately.
No.
No. Jeanette's biological father, Anthony, was notified of her passing and the nature of her death on December 10th. So that's just the following day. That same day, both Angela and Richard had their first day in court, facing some serious charges and equally serious legal consequences. Potentially.
I mean, good, right?
Yeah, absolutely. A candlelight vigil was held outside the home where Jeanette spent the last of her horrific days. On December 16th of 2009, Jeanette was buried, but her family wasn't there. Certainly not her mother and stepfather. Instead, they were being arraigned at the Lane County Circuit Court for murder charges. Angela, 41 at the time, was charged with aggravated murder for the vicious crimes she had committed against her daughter over the years. She would plead guilty and did not take the witness stand. She did, however, make a statement to the jury, which, question, why are we allowing that?
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah. Meanwhile, the only way that Jeanette could speak was through a beautiful and incredibly sad poem that she had written, and that was read at her funeral. And that poem was basically about how much she loved her mom.
No. Why would they? That seems a little insensitive to read at her funeral, no?
I don't know. At first blush, it kind of threw me off too, but I think probably they didn't have a lot of her writing that had been saved from over the years.
Yeah.
And everything I read was that it was just so beautiful and poignant. And it really spoke to, the kind of tremendously loving person that she was.
Oh.
So that's a tough pill to swallow.
You're not going to read it, are you?
No.
Thank God.
No.
I don't think I can handle it.
I don't think I could either. No. The funeral was attended by 100-some people, though her siblings and her biological father were not in attendance either.
Oh, why not?
It's my understanding that her father was still in California at the time, and her siblings were already in DHS, or, they were in placement with temporary foster homes.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Did the grandma show up? The step grandma?
That I didn't see specified, but I would be shocked if she wasn't there.
Right.
Yeah. Speaking of, Lynn McAnulty was completely heartbroken in the aftermath, like many others. She was obviously seeing some signs of abuse in the home and within the family, and she had placed more than one anonymous call to the state child abuse hotline. She was hopeful that if the situation was as she had feared, something would be done. And she spoke frequently in interviews about regretting not having taken additional steps, like actually calling the police directly. I think that's a tough one because I don't know, unless there's an active assault, I think that generally they do want to route those things through the various, DHS or CPS.
Yeah.
So it's a tough one. Sometimes you really do kind of hit kind of a roadblock in cases like this. And the onus should not be on these other, family members and civilians.
Yeah. They should check out the calls.
Yeah.
Thoroughly.
Yeah. Patients, horrifically, of course, did in fact bear actual witness to Jeanette's suffering all that time. Patience actually shared that there were occasions where she would try to sneak her sister water.
Oh.
But if she was caught, it would enrage their mother. She would scream at Patience, and she would beat Jeanette.
She's like the literal punching bag of the house.
Yeah. Yeah. Some neighbors reported they actually had no idea there was another girl living in the home.
That is so sad.
Yeah. Can you imagine? You just had no idea there was another child in that home.
No.
But of course, she could never see the light of day in the shape that she was in. You could never let her out.
Yeah, because then everybody would be calling.
Mm-hmm. Additional details would come to light through the course of the investigation and at trial. For instance, the kitchen was fully stocked, but cabinets were padlocked. Sounds a lot like Angela's upbringing.
Just
to
like,
be
why would
honest.
you do that to somebody if that happened to you?
I know. I can't fathom what could possibly motivate someone to continue such a horrific cycle of abuse.
Yeah.
There was also a bedroom that was found with copious amounts of blood spatter on the walls. Lynn had been vocal about wanting to have both of the children live with her. She wanted custody, but apparently DHS intended to find the two surviving children permanent placement as these horrifying details continued to be revealed. It's my understanding that that did not come to pass, and I do have a little bit of information about that closer to the end of the story.
Okay.
Getting back to a few details of the trials related to the horrific murder. Richard's legal counsel cited his low IQ as part of his defense. And here's a mind-blowing detail. He had been the one to stop Angela from burying the body without even alerting the authorities, likely playing a significant role in the state's decision not to pursue the death penalty in his case.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So she would have just buried her
She
and
would have, yeah.
moved on to the next kid.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you have to assume, because that's a pretty typical pattern when you go back to Teresa Knorr.
Yeah. Oh.
Patience testified in Angela's trial.
Oh, wow.
And I cannot even imagine what it's like for someone that young to testify not only against their own mother, but about the crimes that she commit against your older sister.
Yeah. It's so hard.
She told the jury that neither sibling was permitted to speak to Jeanette, and she was locked up in her room almost without exception. The other children lived relatively normal lives by comparison, which I'm sure, and I struggle with even mentioning this, but I'm sure it's left both of them with incredibly damaging psychological effects like survivor's guilt.
Mm-hmm.
Though obviously they bear no responsibility whatsoever. I think it's only natural. And there's no way that you could not have some type of emotional response like that.
Yeah. But if you're saying too that she would get beat if the other kids acted up, like who knows what the final beating, like what set that off?
Yeah. And, you know, as far as I know, we don't really have a clear indication of that.
Yeah, how would you know?
Yeah, we will get a little bit more of an insight into Angela's mentality, but it really explains nothing. Not in the way that somebody who's thinking clearly, someone who's well. Before we talk about this next part of her testimony, I have to tell you that it's going to get a lot worse.
But it was already a lot worse.
Mm-hmm. And trigger warning for body horror. I really don't know how else to put it. Patients also testified that Jeanette had begun acting a bit strange about a week prior to her death. At the time, Angela showed patients a hole in the back of Jeanette's head, stating that if someone was stabbed in the back of the head with a branch, it would cause brain damage. This was also supposedly right around the time when the last call placed to DHS to report the abuse against Jeanette was made. Had it been investigated, they would have seen clear evidence of abuse, and it may have saved her life.
Oh my God.
There was a literal hole in her head.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
How do you even, how do you...
Yeah. So, behaving strangely, whatever that might have been, and it's a little bit unclear what she meant by that. That might have been explained by, potentially, I would think that could be neurological damage.
Yeah.
Angela tried to lie about the head injury initially, only later admitting that it was probably what killed her. She admitted that she had abused Jeanette and she should have just picked up smoking. But the things Jeanette did just got to her.
Like what? Being a sweet child?
Yeah. Woman, you have you've fully lost the plot. And then some.
Wow. She definitely should have picked up smoking so she could kill herself sooner.
Right? What's more, Angela would reinforce the code of silence with the two younger children on a daily basis, frequently reminding them, what happens in the house stays in this house. So horrifically abusive to those children, even if not in an outward or physical way that we normally think of.
Yeah.
That is psychological abuse to a T. Lastly, at least for patient's testimony, remember when I mentioned the pet waste that had been smeared on her face?
I was hoping that you were going to just forget about that.
Yeah. Well, that was frequently gathered from the yard by patients at her mother's instruction.
Mm.
So you're kind of forcing her own siblings to take part, even if in just like this super small way.
Yeah.
But take part in the abuse against her. It's just
disgusting.
Yeah. Patience wasn't the only one to testify against Angela. Richard got up on the stand as well.
Oh.
The jury would also learn that Jeanette's cause of death was incredibly horrific, probably far beyond anything they could have imagined. Jeanette had pneumonia. She also did, in fact, have a quarter-sized hole in the back of her head. She was also emaciated and had open wounds, some of which showed signs that decaying tissue had been trimmed away from the wounds.
Oh my God.
Angela had, in some cases, tried to treat Jeanette's wounds with basic bandages and iodine, even at times when the bone was visible.
Ew.
Her front teeth were broken. The jury would also be shown photos of Jeanette that had been taken after her death. All I can say is that everyone involved in this case is going to need a lot of therapy. After 6 hours of deliberation on February 25th of 2011, the jury announced they were ready to deliver their decision. Angela, it was decided, would be given the only honor she was deserving of. She would be the only woman on death row in the state of Oregon.
That's awesome.
There, she would get a single change of clothes 3 times a week and would only be allowed out of her cell in order to shower for the purposes of religious practices, very limited exercise, and time with her legal counsel. She would serve her time until the day that she either died of natural causes or was finally executed by the state, eating every single meal alone in her cell until that date.
Honestly, that's too much.
Yeah. I mean, it's better than she gave her own daughter. Richard pled guilty to murder by abuse and was given the mandatory minimum of at least 25 years in prison.
Wow.
Lynn would go on to donate the majority of the family's possessions from the Howard Ave home that weren't in safekeeping for the children to a charitable organization. And frankly, she was relieved to be able to do some good following the tragedy. In August of 2011, Patience asked not to be put up for adoption, as she wished to remain with the family she was placed with following her sister's murder.
Aww.
The family was all too pleased to have her remain with them.
Aww.
Jeanette's biological father, Anthony, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the state of Oregon, requesting $1.5 million in damages, and won.
Holy shit.
Yeah. That's a tough one to know how to feel about because he hadn't seen Jeanette since, not in the last several years.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly when that was. And I think obviously for this type of abuse to be perpetrated against, a child for this many years, that has to be, I would think, obvious. But now he'll never have a chance. So I can kind of see where people, have strong feelings on various ends of the spectrum, if you will, about the lawsuit and him winning that money.
I'm not sure that he exactly deserves the money, but they deserve to be held accountable for something.
Well, and, whether you believe that this is the truth or not, he has made statements to the effect of, this isn't about the money. This is about the fact that I will never have the chance to have any sort of relationship with my daughter now.
Yeah.
And, he wanted someone to be held accountable for that.
Well, hopefully he did something good with it.
I have no idea. Yeah. And honestly, it sounds like maybe he's turned his life around since Jeanette was, just a little baby and he was first incarcerated. And I don't think that just because someone's incarcerated for particularly, a drug-related crime, that means, God, no one deserves any of this. This is, It's so horrific. But, I hope he's sincere.
Yeah.
Angela and Richard's love, or at least their marriage, as you might suspect, did not survive lockup.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. Generally, I think when you testify against your wife in a murder trial, that's probably the last breath for that partnership or romance. Their filing in July of 2015 ended in a dissolution of their marriage, and the matter has since been closed. Around this same time, Angela would also be appearing in court related to her conviction.
Okay.
Initially, the United States Supreme Court declined to review Angela's case. However, in 2016, with new representation, a petition was filed for post-conviction relief in Washington County, claiming her first attorneys did not adequately represent her. After the back and forth that ensued, in 2018, the judge hearing the case agreed.
I don't like where this is going.
The judge said her guilty plea should be vacated and the case re-prosecuted from the beginning. Now, enter a series of appeals in 2019 that were filed on the part of the Oregon DOJ, as well as Angela's new counsel. With the passage of SD 1013 in 2019, this would ultimately change the game, as it reduced the potential penalties for people who murder children through intentional torture.
That doesn't sound right at all. Reduce?
Mm-hmm.
Not increase? You didn't misspeak. Are you pronouncing that right?
Mm-hmm. And the new legislation was retroactive. If you want to know what makes me really mad, here we go. Thanks again for my date of birth or a family's date of birth popping up on another horrific day in history. On July 29th, at the Washington County Circuit Court in Hillsborough, an agreement was finalized between the prosecution and Angela's counsel to re-sentence her to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, the new maximum sentence for the crime under the 2019 law.
Okay.
So ultimately, I have some very complicated feelings about the death penalty. But
yeah.
On this, the day of my daughter's wedding.
But on this, like, very disgusting, clearly she did it and she's a horrible, terrible person.
Yeah.
I think it's okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I know people have a lot of feelings about the death penalty on the whole, and probably some complicated feelings about it even in this case. I know a lot of people really do draw a hard line and believe that the state should not be executing anyone. The better in me wants to say life is enough. But you fucking did this shit on my birthday. And I'll be honest. Angela might be one person that I don't know that I would have such complicated feelings about her being executed by the state, but I guess now we'll never know.
Damn.
So this is some of the same rigmarole that we talked about with Dayton Leroy Rogers, the Malala Forest killer. So probably about time to check in for an update to see if they've made any sort of a decision for him, actually.
Yeah.
So another cheerful thought.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's cheerful.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know. We'll see. Should we get down to some tarot? Do you want to give them a little shuffle-a-roo?
Sure.
I did a couple before we sat down to record, and then I did a couple just now before we got recording. So
I don't know if you trust me to do this after I tried to mix fronts and backs.
yeah, look at that. Beautiful.
And I mixed fronts and backs in my deck.
I mean,
Just, fronts and backs can't be mixing. It's not sanitary.
oh, I'm dead.
I don't want to think about this.
I know.
Do your magic, girl.
Okay. Oh, boy.
Is it not good? I don't want to touch it.
8 of Swords in the reverse.
And for you, all of you that can't see it, it's a girl blindfolded and tied up.
Surrounded by swords.
Yeah.
So that's
In a puddle.
in a puddle.
She's in a puddle.
Cassie, in a puddle.
I'm not okay.
Yeah. You're very not okay. We're gonna do a little feel good magic after this, okay?
Okay.
We'll do something good. Okay. Holy fucking shit. Okay. Eight of Swords keywords are entrapment, self-undoing, fear, helplessness, bondage, denial, deception. In many decks, the Eight of Swords shows a person bound and blindfolded, ringed by a prison of swords. Because swords represent thoughts and beliefs, this card says you've created your own prison with your ideas, and only you can free yourself. So, at least in that regard, it definitely pertains to Angela.
Yeah.
And now she's in literal prison.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got 2 really small, short, extra excerpts here. So, interesting. So, one thing that it says in the upright interpretation that I'm going to read, it says, this is a card of self-undoing. This is the you are your own worst enemy card.
Yikes.
Yeah. Okay, so extra excerpt. Many of our fears are tissue paper thin, and a single courageous step would carry us clear through them. That's an Irish author, actually.
That's very fitting for the DHS.
Yeah.
They would have helped out a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. And then I'll read the other one here because I think I want to get into the meat of the interpretation and not have this hanging on the end. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And that's FDR from his first inaugural address. So,
I mean,
all right.
Some people do have more to fear.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Okay. In the reverse, it says, to break through the barrier you've built, you must change the way you see and do things. Sometimes this means rejecting social norms or going against the status quo. You also need to get focused and get motivating and get moving. Okay. Perhaps you have your head in the clouds. The reversed 8 warns you to get your affairs in order or the situation could worsen. Jesus. In a reading about money, this card says you may not be dealing forthrightly with a financial problem. If you've been putting off paying your taxes, for example, or settling a legal matter, take care of it promptly to avoid more trouble.
Or maybe feeding your fucking daughter.
Yeah. Sometimes this 8 indicates bad advice or deception. If the reading is about your job, the reversed 8 tells you to stop playing the victim. You may feel persecuted, trapped, or limited in your work, but you must take responsibility for where you're at and do something about it. Wow.
Yeah.
In a reading about love, you may feel tied to a person, perhaps because you're afraid to be alone or unwilling to support yourself. This card can mean you're not facing up to what's really going on. If you've been listening to someone else's advice, the time has come to listen to your inner guidance.
Oh, that just kind of makes me think of the poem to her mom.
Yeah.
Like she's literally like trapped with her mom. She can't leave her.
Oh, wow. I feel kind of drawn to pull another card.
Do it.
Okay.
Who am I to tell you no?
Good question. Well, that's interesting. Strength. And you know what's interesting about that, Cassie?
Yeah, what? It's 8.
Oh.
Is it?
Yeah, it is.
It's 8.
Do you know what else is significant about the strength card?
What?
It's a Leo card.
Oh. Interesting.
They overturned her death sentence on my birthday, and then I pulled one of the Leo cards.
Weird.
It's freaky. Okay. All right. Let's see what it says, because
I mean, without even reading it, she was a strong girl. Like,
yeah,
to have survived that long.
Interesting. Okay.
And patience, too. She was strong.
Yeah. So keywords are inner power, overcoming weaknesses, courage, persistence. And This is interesting. It's kind of an extra excerpt. It says, some decks assign strength the number 11 and give justice number 8. I think strength and 8 are more closely aligned, and so did the creators of the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, who broke with the older numbering system. From the perspective of numerology, 8 corresponds to pragmatism, material mastery, financial success, whereas 11 represents humanitarianism and equality. Interesting. Strength shows you're exhibiting moral courage and fortitude. You've learned to work with your instinctive nature, to listen to it and hear its whisperings. In shamanic teachings and mythology, animals often serve as guides and teachers who help us on our way. This card indicates you've come through difficulties and learned to rely on inner strength to solve problems. You've grown strong through suffering, trials, and tribulations. You've tamed the beast within. The lesson of this card is we don't conquer our animal natures by brute force, but by gentleness and feeling our way into rapport with the instinctive side.
Yeah.
I think the number thing, because it also correlates to justice.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
that's really freaking me out. Oh, and it's such a hard case.
It really was. There's not really a lot more to embellish on. I feel like it said it all, you know?
Yeah. I won't go through like all of the regular 3 interpretations because I think that is
I think
kind
we
of
got it. Yeah. We got what we needed out of it.
Wow. Oh, it's freaking me out.
And it's crazy how like polar opposites these cards are, but they're the same number.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks like they're like looking after her too.
Yeah.
Like it's okay up here in the clouds.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay.
All right. Should we go before we just
Yeah.
start bawling on the
I don't
camera?
know. Something's happening where there's water coming out my eyes a little
We're
bit.
leaking. You need to go plug up the
Yeah.
tear holes.
Yeah.
All right. You ready?
Yeah.
Have a creepy ass day.
See you next Tuesday. So, for all of you that are listening, if you have any true crime or paranormal stories that you want us to share, maybe with the whole Pacific Northwest.
Yes, we would love to read them on the pod.
Yes, we will read them out loud.
Not just in our heads.
Yes. They don't have to be from the Pacific Northwest if you would like to share. Email us at pnwhauntsandhomicides@gmail.com. It's all spelled out, no special characters. Super duper easy peasy.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Same thing as the email at pnwhauntsandhomicides, all spelled out, no special characters. Please also rate and review us on whatever platform you're listening to, and check out our stories on social media because our meme game is hot.
Agreed.
And if you agree, like Caitlin, you can also find us on Patreon and support the show.
Bitchin'.
Smells like fire in here.
Yeah, it's the candles.
Ooh, it's making a little glowy thing above the candle, right?
Yeah, it is. I like it. What?
Did you see a
What?
thing flung out when I put my hand over there?
Oh. Okay.
Like a spark.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm just like, I just light people's fire.
Light it.
Is this a tarot outtake?
Yeah, I think so.